Let's get you up to speed with the details as far as the tensions in West Asia is concerned. Now, preliminary U.S. intelligence assessments on American strikes on Iran's nuclear sites has sent the cat among the pigeons. The reason is because the report casts doubt on President Donald Trump's assertion that recent American airstrikes had completely and totally obliterated Iran's nuclear program. The report claims that Iran's enriched uranium stocks had not been eliminated. The report mentions that Iran's nuclear program may have been set back for a few months at best. It also mentions that the strike sealed off the entrances to two of the facilities, but didn't actually collapse as claimed. Underground buildings and the centrifuges still remain intact after the attacks. Now, on the other hand, Trump had claimed that the U.S. put 12 bunker buster bombs on Fordo, that it had breached the canopy and completely obliterated the facility. Trump also slammed Western media outlets who demean one of the most successful military strikes in history, is what Donald Trump said.
Iran will never rebuild its nuclear. From there? Absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place is demolished. The B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine. They hit late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone. But when I see CNN all night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers. I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And, you know, the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN is scum, and so is MSDNC. They're all, and frankly, the networks aren't much better. It's all fake news, but they should not have done that. Those pilots hit their targets. Those targets were obliterated, and the pilots should be given credit. They're not after the pilots, they're after me. They want to try and demean.
For 60 days, he negotiated aggressively to encourage that Iranian regime to give up those weapons peacefully. And by the way, he was more than willing to accept a peaceful settlement to that problem. But again, this comes back to instincts. When the president realized that there was not going to be a peaceful settlement to that problem, he sent B-2 bombers and dropped 12 30,000-pound bombs on the worst facility and destroyed that program. And to the Americans who are worried about this becoming a protracted conflict, I think the president solved that very quickly. Not only did we destroy the Iranian nuclear program, we did it with 0 American casualties, and that's what happens when you've got strong American leadership. You hear the American media say all the time that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. The threat to the democracy is Democrats importing voters instead of persuading their fellow citizens.
On June 21st, a U.S. precision operation effectively fulfilled our narrow objective to degrade Iran's capacity to produce a nuclear weapon. These strikes, in accordance with the inherent right to self-defense, collective self-defense, consistent with the UN Charter, aimed to mitigate the threat posed by Iran to Israel, the region, and to more broadly international peace and security.
It is profoundly troubling that even after a decade of Resolution 2231, Iran's fully monitored, peaceful nuclear program has been repeatedly targeted by Israel and the United States and damaged the credibility of the Security Council. Resolution 2231 was intended to promote peaceful solution and strengthen the Council's role in preventing unnecessary crises. However, reckless attacks on Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities by Israel and the U.S. has gravely weakened this role. It is disappointing that the Council failed to condemn these illegal attacks.
Well, I think it's still early to assess all the strikes. We know we were able to push back the program. we were able to remove the imminent threat that we had.
Washington today was under cloud of this reporting that was done by Reuters and by CNN that said that initial assessment of the Defense Intelligence Agency basically pointing out to the fact that these attack or these strikes by the United States were not as successful as what has been reported up until now, and their assessment is that they have deterred Iran to not pursue nuclear weapon by only few months. And I think that caused a lot of stir here in Washington, D.C. CNN also got a quote from the White House where the White House basically derided the reporting, also called out the intelligence leak and said that they believe and they firmly believe that these nuclear sites in Iran were obliterated. So a lot of interesting developments here in Washington, D.C. There are people questioning it. There have been some GOP senators, the Republican senators, who also want to wait and watch and get full assessment report, which could take a while. But President Trump also took note of the reporting, and he dismissed CNN and the reporting, and then went on to post a video that shows B-2 bombers bombing. We do not know for sure if it was an exact video of those bombers attacking Iran, but the background of that video has interesting lyrics and talks about bombing Iran. So a lot that happened today. People are in Washington, D.C. questioning if these strikes were actually successful, if these strikes indeed obliterated, as that word has been used multiple times by the President, Secretary of Defense, and the White House. So there are questions to that. But we did get a report, or I should say a statement by the Pentagon deputy spokesperson who said that, we've dropped these many thousands of pounds of bombs, and it shouldn't take a genius to figure out if those sites would be obliterated or not.